Lori here. I'm back to do my part one of my reading wrap up for the month of November. I will be very, very honest. November was a little bit of a challenge reading month for the first part. I had a pretty bad sinus infection for the first 2 weeks, and it really brought down my focus. Also, my listening was sort of not the best. So I did read some stuff, and I'm on a much better upswing, especially when the boss battle for the Avengers reading challenge I do every month started. I definitely picked up my reading energy, but the first week I was pretty much not reading anything, or anything that I was reading was definitely not as thrilling as I wanted it to be. I had big plans this month to do like a full adult, like high fantasy reading month, and it just has not come to succession as much as I wanted. But I did at least read one, so that's really exciting. And I did actually, once the boss battle for Thanos kind of kicked up, I did read a bunch more, so let's get into it. I think what I'm going to try to do, sort of going forward, is maybe read like one adult book a month, and just try to keep that going. Because I do like reading adult fantasy, but it burns me out really, really quickly. So the first book that I finished reading was actually a really, really fun one, and that is The Hawthorne Legacy by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I think I finished this November 1st, if I'm remembering correctly, because I was reading this after I got my COVID booster. I really like this book. It's definitely a sequel, which means I did not feel this to be a slump book at all. Sometimes when you get to read a sequel, but this is the sequel to the Inheritance Games. I really like this one. So this book started off, there was a big reveal at the end of the Inheritance Games, and then this book sort of undid that reveal a little bit, but then as you sort of go through the book, it sort of made it even more complicated. And Jennifer Lynn Barnes writes super tightly wound stories that I recommend you read as back-to-back as you can. I like this one. I thought the romance was just the right level. I really liked it. I thought the characters were fun. It reminds me of sort of like Paper Princess, but not as sexy as like that book was. But I really enjoyed it. I really liked Avery as a character. I read some thrillers and mysteries this month that had really unlikable characters. This was probably the only one that that was like a character-driven story for me, that I loved all the characters in the read. And I just thought it was a fun, engaging read. Very mysterious, very, very thrillerly. I love all the mysteries and the plots and the secrets that were sort of developed. And I also love the relationships that Avery had with all the Hawthorne men in this story. And it just was great. I wound up giving this 4 stars. Definitely one of my favorite reads of the month by far. Of a downturn. I wasn't feeling my best. My sinus infection developed, and I just was not feeling my best. But in that next couple of days where I wasn't feeling my best, I was able to finish The Holiday Swap. So here's a photo of that. Holiday themed romance book that I read, and I liked it. Basically, the premise sounds really, really cute. It's like a holiday movie. It's like a Hallmark. It reminds me so much of like a Hallmark movie that I watched with Allison Sweeney at some point. It just reminds me of that concept. But you basically follow these 2 identical twin sisters. They're both involved in baking. One works sort of at like a Food Network show, and it's about cooking, and she kind of has this jerky co-star. And then the other twin works at the family's bakery in this small town. And when one gets like a head injury, can't smell or taste, she has to switch places with her identical twin sister. And hilarity, drama, and holiday fun sort of ensues. The one thing I struggled with this book was there were so many miscommunication tropes. Miscommunication was like 1,000 times percent. And it really ruined the book for me, because I understood why like the characters couldn't like tell like their employees like why they had swapped places, but I didn't really see why they couldn't have told the people that they were potentially falling in love with why they switched places. Like, that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, so I only gave it 3 stars. It was fun. It was a really, really quick read. It was very, very like fast-paced, adventure-y, like not even adventure, it was just fast-paced, fun. It was holiday themed. It was super fun. I liked it. It wasn't my favorite. The miscommunication stote definitely like brought down the story for me a little bit, but it was super cute, and I hope to get to some more holiday romances in the next couple of weeks. Background sound, my parents were talking very, very loud. I still live with them, and their living room is right over there, so if you hear background noise, that's what it is. But the next book that I picked up to read was actually a audiobook, and I took a nonfiction break in the month of October, but I'm back. And I watched Scarred, and it's by Sarah Edmondson, and it kind of explored her path through the NXIVM cult. Found it very, very interesting, but here's a photo. But when I wasn't feeling my best, I just was rewatching a couple of the cult shows about NXIVM. I rewatched Seduce, and then I rewatched The Vow on HBO Max, and I didn't know she had a book out. So there's actually two other books I'm really interested in picking up because of the NXIVM cult, but it follows her and her path through it, and I found it very, very fascinating. So I don't really rate nonfiction, but if you're at all interested in the NXIVM cult or just interested in cults like I am, former psych major here, I would recommend you pick it up. It was a nice supplemental material to go with the 2 documentaries I watched, but yeah, I really liked it. And then the next book I picked up, this is when I was starting to feel a little bit better, and right before the boss battle dropped, I picked up These Deadly Games by Diana Urban. This was part of NetGalley November. I don't know how successful I was with that so far, but this is the next one that I picked up. And this doesn't come out until January, so I'm giving you a little bit of a sneak peek of my sort of conflicted feelings about her first book, All Your Twisted Secrets. I liked it. It wasn't my favorite. I really struggled with some of the plot twists towards the very, very end of that read. If you've read it, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. But I still really did like it. So this book follows a main character. I cannot for the life of me remember her name. But she wakes up one day and she's very into like online gaming. And she realizes someone's sending her messages saying that her sister has been taken. And to protect and not her sister won't die, she has to do these things. And these things are dangerous things that can lead to some bad things happening to her close friends. It was a wild ride, I will say that. Like, I did not know what to expect in this book, and I was sort of flabbergasted throughout the whole book. I really was astonished and didn't really know what to do. So twisty and turny-wise, really, really good. The characters I struggled with, but they did grow on me. I did not see the ending coming. I just don't really know how I felt about it because it was entertaining, it was fast-paced, it was engaging. I just don't know how I felt about the actual plot of the story because I thought it was like a little bit out there, but I liked it. I thought it was interesting. I wound up giving it maybe like 3.5 stars. I think I definitely like this one better than All Your Twisted Secrets. It was definitely interesting. So definitely check this one out when it comes out in January. I enjoyed it. Wasn't like a favorite of mine, but I did like it, and I'll definitely read more by Diana Urban in the future. Boss Battle dropped when I was in the middle of reading that, but I have a big thing. I don't like to read 2 books at the same exact time for the most part. So one of the first challenges was pick out of your 2 books, have Twitter pick it. So they picked The Vanishing Star by Maureen Johnson, and I actually like this book quite a bit. This is also another sequel. This is a sequel to Truly Devious. I really like this one. I'm picking up this one as an audiobook like midway through because I had more audiobook listening time. I really enjoyed this one. So basically this one follows Stevie again. She winds up going back to the Ellingham Academy where one of her friends goes missing, and she's sort of set to uncover what happened to her friend. But then the mystery in was it like the 1930s? The Ellingham case, a mystery that she has been trying to solve. She kind of gets some puzzles and allowed to sort of put it back together or sort of figure out what happened. There's some new characters introduced. I definitely want to get my hands on Hand on the Wall because I'm intrigued by the ending of this quite a bit. Definitely like this one a little bit better than book 1. I really like the setting. I read a couple of boarding school books this month. I read a couple of other ones. This one was probably my favorite out of them, I would say, contemporary wise. So I really, really like this one. And you could even say the Hawthorne Legacy is sort of set in a boarding school because the house is just really, really fun. But this one I really liked, and it was probably my favorite other than the Hawthorne Legacy. It's probably my favorite mystery thriller that I read other than the other ones that I picked up. So definitely like this one. Really want to get my hands on Hand on the Wall. Hopefully maybe I'll be able to maybe even finish it by the end of the year. But yeah, I really like this one. So that was good. Then I wound up picking up reading Boundary Side by Robert Jackson Bennett. This one was a wild ride, and I love this book. So again, I say that I struggle sometimes with adult books. This one was not one that I struggled with, and I just really, really loved. This was also a book that I was reading like pages. I'd read like 100 pages a day. So it's been a wild ride, I will say that. But I like this book. So you basically follow this character. Well, one character you follow is named Sansia. She's a thief, and she's a damn good one. Whenever she touches something, she can sort of feel like where the object has been. She can also tell like breaks in. If she's putting her hand on a wall, she can sort of say like, oh, well, there's like a special pot that I could get in there. So she's sort of like a thief with like a twist. But when she's paid to take something, it goes in a totally different direction. You also get other characters' point of view throughout this read. By the very, very end, I was engrossed and need to know what happens. This book is an adult book, but it reminded me a lot of some YA tropes that I really adore. Some that stand out is there's a Percy Jackson element in the story. There's also a City of Bones element in the story, or a Mortal Instrument element in the story. I really liked it. I definitely want to get Shorefall on my TBR because I am really excited for it. But this one, definitely a standout, and it's probably right now my only 5-star read of the month. And then the next book that I picked up was I had to read for like an hour or something, and it had to be something that like I wasn't reading because in the boss battle, these were the 2 books that were on my TBR, so I had to read something else. And as I said, I don't like reading more than one thing at a time, so I picked up Christie and the Snobs by Chow Chow, and I wound up liking this one. This one is also very connected to the TV series. There was a show, I think it might be Christie and the Snobs, that was about it in the newest Babysitters Club drop. So this story is very, very reminiscent of that. But I liked it. It also does deal with like the death of a pet, so I thought it was just cute, and I'm loving not even re-experiencing this series because I never read the Babysitters Club as a kid. I read Little Sister, but I just love it. I think the art style is great as well, and it was a nice addition considering I just watched Babysitters Club Season 2. Last book that I finished reading was also my mom picked it for me, which shocked me because my mom does not like airy and creepy things. But she picked A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee. I actually saw Victoria Lee at New York City Comic Con talking about this book. This is also the Owl Crate edition. I think the normal one is purple and white. So this one's the Owl Crate edition. I have very conflicted thoughts about this book. My next book, Witch Haven, that I read, which I'll talk about in my next reading vlog, they're like such opposite ends of the spectrum, but also super connected. So this book was pitched to me as like a witchy mystery thriller. I will say the first half of this book was more witchy, and the second half of this book was more thrillery. But you basically follow this girl named Felicity, and she winds up returning to this boarding school after her girlfriend died. And when she gets there, she was a part of a witchy cult in her previous years. She gets back, things start going wrong, and then a new girl arrives who's an author. Their paths wind up crossing. It definitely was more murder, like mystery thriller than witchy, and I just don't know how I feel about the characters. Sort of the same exact way I felt like These Deadly Games. I struggled with the characters quite a bit. And the ending reminded me a ridiculous amount of All Your Twisted Secrets, which I struggled with. So I would give this book 3 stars. I would go in expecting to get more mystery thriller and less witchy vibes. If you want a more witchy read, I have a couple coming for you in my second half of the month wrap up, especially Witch Haven. I like this. I don't think it was my favorite, but it was a fun, fast-paced story. So if I had to pick favorites for you, my 2 favorites of the month would definitely be the Hawthorne Legacy, or the first half, and Foundry Side. And if I had to pick books that disappointed me a little bit, I would say A Lesson in Vengeance and These Deadly Games. So let me know in the comments what are some books you have read recently, and I'll talk to you soon for another update. Bye, friends.